All right, before we start going over the little note sheet that you picked up, anybody got any questions? What do we know? All right. So what's like the follow-up questions that usually, not usually, but that you would expect somebody's going to kind of have? Okay, got it. Kind. I think someone said how. I think a follow-up, not follow-up, but the W question would then probably be why. Pardon? It you never know. I mean, the only description you get is like that second sentence, where he is changed into a monstrous verminous bug. And one of the issues that exists with being a translation is there's not like, it doesn't say cockroach, it doesn't say beetle, it doesn't say spider or anything like that. And it's like kind of purposely vague with it. Most folks associate or assume, and so this would never be like a quiz or test question that we would do. Most assume that he would essentially probably be a cockroach. Simple reason that dirty, disgusting, no one would like it. Ugly, it would be a verminous type thing. But whether cockroach, beetle, big picture, it probably doesn't matter because no matter what, it's not good to be going into a bug. Does talk about 6 legs and stuff like that, so you know he's not a spider. Talks about having like hard shell. His abdomen is like ridged and kind of tough and stuff like that. So that beetle cockroach kind of family. He's not a stink bug. He's not a little fly. You're not gonna have like wings start showing up where he's like buzzing all around the room and stuff like that. But talks about how he scurries. He kind of scuttles. He has a hard time certainly walking, getting balance, and all that kind of stuff. He wakes up on his back, and so it takes him forever just to try to figure out how to get out of bed by twisting around and all that kind of stuff.
Is he a potato bug? That's what they do.
We don't know. We never are going to get an actual determinative thing. Any ideas for those two? What's the easiest, most probable explanation?
He got bit by a bug and that turned into one.
So, who's the last person who you know who got bit by a bug and turned into one?
Spider-Man.
Outside of that,
Probably like imagining, because he's silly. Or
Wait, is that actually
you don't know for sure. However, I would kind of go more along this idea that it's either a dream or if he, I mean, in a realistic sense, there's no way he's turned into a bug. Never met anyone who's turned into a bug. You can poison someone with whatever you want.
Yeah, but then they can take care of
They're not going to turn into a bug. Now, you can think that you have turned into a bug. And so, George, listen up. So you could go with, I think, the two most realistic possibilities are, number one is a dream, where it is totally happening in his head and he's completely asleep. Or you could have one where, yeah, he absolutely thinks he is a bug. And so this would all be taking place in his head mentally. We don't know. And we're never honestly going to know. I think the big thing would be the chance of him actually literally turning into a bug, not going to happen. Now keep in mind when we were talking about Kafka, last week, you have a lot of things going on certainly in his life that are going to be problematic and troublesome, whether it be family relationships, you got World War I going on and all that kind of stuff. He certainly isn't a fan of work. You can tell that Gregor isn't a fan of work. So, it might be hey, I'm waking up, I feel like I don't want to go to work, so I'm going to come up with a story, boom, I'm a bug. Now, if you were to open the door and Zach goes, "I'm a bug," go, "No, you're not."
Hey, you.
"Yeah, I'm a bug." "No, you're not." How can you still get people to be terrified or at least afraid of you? Well, A, if it's a dream, it's all part of your dream and it's your own world. B, and there is not like a film version of the movie of the book that exists or anything like that, but it has been performed on stage quite a bit. And what will happen is they'll get a person who is able to contort himself. I guess it could be herself. You get a female playing Kafka as well, or playing Samsa. But where the person will mentally think that he has turned into a bug. So we'll basically just start only living in the room when he tries to eat the food, and this is going to come up in part number 2. We'll just kind of stick his face into the bowl and basically becomes a mess. Doesn't speak like a human being anymore, doesn't sleep like a human, doesn't walk like a human. So you have a sense where essentially a person has essentially mentally lost their capability to think anymore. This is hard to kind of for us to really understand. It's not important if he has become a bug, but at the very least, it's maybe important to kind of focus on how or why he at least thinks he'll be a bug if those things ever show up on the little smartboard that I just drew around it. So we're not going to get answer to those questions, but I think you can at least start to figure out maybe some reasons as to why he could be feeling the way he is, and that's why we'll take a look here at the note sheet. Let's try this one. Yeah, here we go. See if it works. All right. For any of these things, we don't have to necessarily go in order, whether it be the picture in his room, jobs, stuff always going down to the bottom, manager visiting, or Gregor's injury. What are things that we know about any of these? Jillian? Okay. So it's a woman cut out
What did it say she was wearing?
from a magazine. The term that gets used is wearing a fur boa. Not a snake like a boa constrictor, but what would a fur boa be like? Like a big scarf that's going to kind of like basically going around your neck. In the picture in the room, you get a fair amount of detail coming up for it on both page 3, and then also it kind of comes up in page 13. Anyone recall the frame? There's a term that gets used in front of the frame. It's a G term. It's in a gilt frame. Anyone know what gilt is? Specific color that goes along with gilt. Also begins with a G. Gold. Gilt is like gold. It's called gold leaf. You go into like Carnegie Museum would have stuff like this, but old mirrors, big old picture frames would be made out of wood, very ornate and carved, and then there's like a little bit of like gold accent that would be going along it. So that is gilt frame. So basically, what kind of things are you going to put in a gilt frame? Something that is going to be of importance or significance, to a person. And we even know when it comes to the frame that who has made it, Gregor's the one who comes up with it because the mom is explaining to the manager how important and whatnot this is. So Gregor is even the one who has made it himself. It says made the frame, even though it doesn't look like it. What kind of picture would you expect to find in a fancy looking frame? Okay, family member, self-portrait, spouse, girlfriend, significant other, something like that. Fancy landscape. Yeah, it's just going to look like a nice, big, expensive painting. If you were to spend big money on a painting, on some kind of piece of art, you want to make sure it's going to go in something nice. Where did you get the picture of the woman from? That was going to be my next question. If it's coming from a magazine, what are the chances of Gregor actually knowing the person? Slim to none. It could be a celebrity. We don't necessarily know. We just know it's a woman in a fur boa. But he sees this picture. He takes the time, multiple days, to make the frame, gold leaf, all of that kind of stuff. You can tell that it therefore has some significance to him. If the most important, or at least what seems to be the most important possession that he has, is a picture of a woman that he doesn't even know, what would be the assumptions that you can make about him so far as interacting with other people? He doesn't really see anybody.
Oh,
So you have a
'cause he's
person-
traveling salesman, so he doesn't have any friends. He's a lonely guy.
Now, Luke may not have put it in the most eloquent terms, and so he'll work on that a little bit, but you have a person who is very isolated, who is alienated, who really kind of lacks any kind of human interaction with anybody.
I was just thinking something. I don't know yet.
Anyone remember a picture that is it like that's in the kitchen area of Gregor? There's a picture of him. He's in uniform when he's a lieutenant in the Army. So there is a picture like of him in the household, which you would think, okay, this is going to be a significant moment in his life. That one doesn't make the cut. The one that he focuses on is this magazine portrait, this picture that he saw. So whether it's simply that he sees the person, wishes he can meet the person, we have no idea. But there's something about that picture frame that he certainly likes. But it is going to highlight that feeling of alienation, isolation. So when you kind of go back to why, again, not that this is going to completely fill everything in, but if you're not going to know people as a human, for all intents and purposes, he may as well simply be a bug. Now, when it came to his job, I know we said we could go in any order, but when it came to his job, what are his thoughts and feelings about it? Because it's already been said. Okay, so there is a strong dislike for it. He is lonely, travels all the time. You get the sense that how many days has he missed at work before this day? Absolutely none. And now he misses one day, or he at least misses one train, and who's already coming in to see who's there? If he's there, you got the manager, the boss. So he travels all the time. He's lonely. He is not treated well. And essentially is not getting any kind of respect. Hates the poor food from when he is traveling all the time. He can't stand that whenever he'll go to hotels, he sees other traveling salesmen that have all the time. They're sitting down for drinks and whatnot, and can't see how that would ever take place at all. So for his job and his thoughts about it, you have a strong dislike. And even goes so far as top of page 6, starts on the bottom of page 5, going on to page 6. He was the boss's minion without backbone or intelligence. He was the boss's minion without backbone or intelligence. What's he turned into?
A bug.
A bug does not have,
A backbone.
or we assume. So he already, in a way, kind of feels like he's being treated as a bug, or he's not being treated as a human. So now, essentially, in his mind, he turns into one. So it's very much kind of bug-like at this point.
They really kind of seem
They did make a movie after this.
Bug's like.
Yes.
This is gonna be like one of them. It's probably like one of those genie things. Like I said, he was always like a bug or something, and then some genie came out and was like, yeah, it's weird, but
Well, you could insert animal or bug or insect, whatever, and then Tom, we'll get to you in a second of whatever you want. But if you statements that people will make, you treat your dog better than you treat me. You even have like in the diary where you have Gregor or Kafka's father talking about Lobi, he who sleeps with dogs wakes up with fleas. If you want to make someone feel inhuman, you start associating animals or bugs with them. If you have really now been feeling that for a long time, you might kind of get to the sense that you actually feel like you have become one. And so when it comes to that whole mental state, dreamlike mental instability that would be taking place, I think all those things really kind of start to go to reinforce to this kind of dreamlike scenario. I don't know how well people can remember their dreams that they've had, and not to say that you've ever had a dream like a bug, but what do you notice about weather outside? We don't get a whole lot of reference, but we do know a little bit that it's raining outside. And then also, along with the rain, you can't really see because what else happens when you tend to have a lot of moisture in the air? Rainy and foggy, condensation and all that kind of stuff. Pay attention to whenever he looks out the window or what he sees. Ladies, you're going to get a lot of rain, you're going to get a lot of haze, you're going to get a lot of fog, you're going to get a lot of dark imagery. You're not going to get a whole lot of sun, if any. What do you kind of associate with dreams? Dark, cloudy, hazy, gloomy. Now, yes, you can have positive dreams and things like that, but you tend to think of not being able to see something well, you don't remember well. Devin could wake up in the morning and go, I had a dream last night, and I don't remember what happened. It all becomes kind of hazy and things like that. So when you do get some weather imagery that is kind of popping up, and so you see the weather gets described on page 3 and page 9, it tends to be a lot of rain, a lot of fog. Rain, drizzle, fog. These would all be things that people would associate as being dream-like. You talk to like psychologists and things like that, water tends to be a theme that pops up in dreams quite a bit. People have fear that they're going to be drowning or falling within a dream and whatnot. But this rain, drizzle, fog makes everything kind of dreamlike. So again, that would kind of be the idea that this is probably not literal. So you have this combination of what can be very real but also very absurd. The whole dream thing gives you a lot of freedom then, because you don't have to worry about things necessarily making sense or being able to be scientifically proven, because if it's in a dream, Tommy can leap buildings in tall mountains and fly and do all his Superman kind of stuff. You had your hand up earlier. We just talked about rain. Is that making you thirstier now?
No, go rain out.
That will ring in like 3 minutes, so you'll be able to get stuff for beverage and all that kind of stuff at that point. We kind of talked about this a little bit because it was with Gregor's room too. What do we know about the setup of his room?
It's kind of isolated from the rest of the house. Because he has a lock on the door.
In a way, yes. In a way, you could also say he's also kind of in the middle of everyone's house. He locks the door.
It's kind of small.
Except I would add a letter to the word door. I'd put an S. Because how many doors do you have?
2.
Not 2.
3.
There's 3.
8.
We got 3 doors.
Where'd you see it?
He has 3 doors and a window that he can look outside. The room itself is going to kind of change throughout the course of the book. And not that the room is going to change, not that the walls are going to collapse, it's not going to turn into a round room or things like that, but the overall setup, the furniture, the stuff like that is going to kind of change.
He also talked about his fabrics or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what he would be using as like the salesman, where he has that stuff out. The room, for the most part, does seem to be fairly bare. We'll get a little bit more description, especially in part 2 of the furniture that's going to be there. But it's certainly not big, fancy mansion or anything along those lines. Locks the doors. One of the things that we already set up at the top, isolated, alienated, so that certainly is going to be reinforced with that idea. Start working with part number 2, because Wednesday we'll do our quiz for that one. That one runs through page 50. similar to what you did for part number 1. Yeah.
Are we gonna finish up this tomorrow?
We'll still be going over this sheet tomorrow, yes.
Okay, I didn't know if we had to do it.
No, it's not a homework assignment.